Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. Joining me this week, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Time to go pop open a cold one. Hey, what's going on, nerds?
That was a weird little delayed poppage. What you popping open today?
Mountain Dew Voltage.
Mountain Dew Voltage. All right. And it's just Cameron and I today. Another kind of two-person episode. Cameron and I are just going to sit down and talk about kind of what we've been up to. Thank you to, we had Frank on, Frank hosting with Logan and Christian last week. And then Frank and I also sat down for the Patreon early access episode that went live at the end of April there. So thank you to them for holding down the fort last week. A little bit of housekeeping before we dive in to talk about what Cam and I have been up to. If you enjoy what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast everywhere you can. If you're feeling extra generous, you can always support us over at Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, just like this wonderful person did. I want to give a shout out to my aunt, Pam Larson, who hopped back onto our Patreon train. She had previously supported with my grandmother, in a shared account. But when my grandmother passed away, they had to kind of pull support pretty briefly. But my aunt is back now, Pam Larson, supporting us. So thank you to Aunt Pam with kind of a memorial in memory of support from my grandmother Bev as well. So thank you to Pam and Bev Larson. I also want to give a special shout out to our Patreon producers, James L. and Jason Bellevue. Thank you to them for their continued support. So yeah, you can support us at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. You get early access to a monthly bonus episode of That Nerdy Site Show, which, as I said, Frank and I sat down and recorded kind of a follow-up to the episode Cam and I recorded a month ago, talking about how we were dealing with kind of the early stages of kind of being in quarantine from coronavirus. And then Frank and I kind of continued on that and said, well, we're now a month, more than a month into this. What's going on? How's Frank dealing with it? All that stuff. We also talk about Frank's kind of budding interest in video editing. So check that out if you have not already. Or if you want to be a patron, you can go get that for anybody who's a patron at $1 or above. You can support this over there. So let's dive right on in, Cam. We have a variety of things to kind of tackle and hop into this episode. So I'll throw it to you to kind of start us off. You have a few things you wanted to tackle. Hit us with your first kind of what you've been up to topic.
I think the biggest thing I need to mention is that if you hear a lot of lack of talk about games from me this week, it's because I've been playing something that's under embargo.
Yeah.
That sucked up a lot of my time. Outside of that, though, there's a couple of things I want to talk about kind of within the same kind of circle. First things first, I need to address that the NYXL lost to Shanghai Dragons. It was a brutal loss after two matches or 2 rounds of dominating, just taking 2 maps in some really convincing fashion. Just don't know what happened at the half, but we ended up taking an L on that one. It was rough. Want to just put that out there because, of course, that's NYXL update from me. But speaking more so on Overwatch League in general is you kind of have to be under a rock if you pay any attention to esports. If you didn't hear the news that Sinatraa, the Season 2 MVP from the San Francisco Shock, has officially not only left his team, but left the entire and organization, but also left the entire league. Sinatraa had requested his release from NRG's owned San Francisco Shock in order to play Valorant with Sentinels, which is another esports organization.
Yeah, I can say I did indeed hear that Sinatraa had left, and it made waves in the Twitter sphere.
Yeah, it's a really big and interesting conflict because a lot of people would say, a lot of people are saying that this is the nail in the coffin. Overwatch League is dead game, LOL. But they aren't really seeing a lot. There's a lot of information out there that a lot of people aren't recognizing or even acknowledging. And that's that Sinatraa actually has not played a match in the Overwatch League since mid-March. He's been benched this entire time. And not only has he been benched this entire time, when he was playing before, he was not really like he was getting subbed out after a single map that he was in. He was not performing well with the weekly pool meta, and this has actually been a weakness of the San Francisco Shock. If there's not a consistent meta for them, their young team to kind of adapt to and grind to, they're having a harder time with it. Really have enjoyed seeing kind of things turn on their head with the weekly pool meta. But I will also say that Sinatraa really found himself really enjoying Valorant. He was streaming a lot of Valorant. He was having a lot of fun with it. It's important to note that he actually got started in FPS competitive gaming because of Counter-Strike. His original intention was to be a Counter-Strike pro. When he was doing Overwatch streams or later on Valorant streams and CSGO players would stop in, professional CSGO players, he would kind of flip out. Like, he was a big fan of the CSGO scene. And to see Valorant and playing it myself and kind of experiencing it, it plays like if CSGO wanted to have like a little bit of more flavor with abilities like you'd see in Overwatch. A lot less flair, a lot less impact, and a lot more targeted towards strategic maneuverability and kind of obstruction of ocular abilities. It's really cool stuff, but it's really not as game-changing, impactful as, say, like a big ult from an Overwatch character. It's not as impactful into the game. So the game, at the end of the day, still relies much more on your ability to click heads. And game's awesome. I love Valorant. I've actually had a lot of fun with the beta. I've streamed it twice already.
You are the only person I've actually hopped in and watched play Valorant.
Yep. And you watched me play Valorant, which means that you watched somebody like do very poorly.
Yeah, I mean, you won a couple matches while I was watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's the great thing about it is they're following the Counter-Strike model, so it's real hard to get swept totally in the Counter-Strike model of matches. It's possible. I got swept yesterday. It was really painful because people kept leaving the team and going AFK and then bouncing from the match. And so by the end of it, there was only 2 of us that were 3 of us that were active on our team, and it was very brutal. There were no I'm very grateful though that the people we were playing against did not do a GG easy or easy clap or any kind of those bad manner stuff. That's really atypical of people in a competitive game. Like, they could tell, like, they were winning pretty handedly, and I don't think it felt good for anybody. Like, nobody was happy with the situation at the end of the day. If you, like, maybe they were, I don't know, but I know if they were competitive, I doubt that they felt good about that win.
It's one of those, like, I never play those kinds of games, but, like, when I would play Destiny or something, I would totally just enjoy it if my team won. I'd be like, okay, cool. I don't pay enough attention to the meta that's going on or like anywhere near enough attention to, like, is this team that I'm playing really bad? Because I know I'm really bad, so it's just kind of like I lucked out, or I got a few good players on my team that are like really helping carry me or something. And it was just kind of like I won, cool, I won, yay, and then on to the next game where I would immediately get like hammered. So I imagine it's possible out there you have people playing Valorant who are just kind of like in my boat, where it's like, I'm just playing this to have fun, and yay, we happen to be winning, hooray.
No, and that's the thing. I think it's totally cool if that's the case. But I was more specifically mentioning that, like, there was nobody having bad manners on the other team, which is rare. Because even in, like, basic bad manners, it's fine, whatever. If you want to flex on the team that lost, go ahead and just put an easy clap in the chat. It's cool. Like, I get that. Like, you won. This is you kind of, like, asserting your dominance in a little bit of a way that says more about you than me, and that's fine.
It's the digital, or it's how people are messaging the teabag now these days.
I guess, like, the teabagging still exists, but it's way less. I don't know. I think people who play online shooters are so desensitized to a teabagging.
I was watching, I want to say it was Snowbike Mike's Twitch stream, and like the kind of funny guys were playing Predator Hunting Grounds with him, and I think Greg was the Predator, and they managed to like take him out. The fire team took him out, and they even like Greg armed the nuke or whatever, and then one of the guys on Mike's team basically disarmed it, and then it takes them into the section where they basically just have to defend the body for a couple minutes while the choppers come and pick it up. And they definitely ended the round by just teabagging Greg, and they were all playing it with like Greg would hop off Mike so that he was isolated from everybody else, and he comes back in, he's just like, was the teabagging necessary? And just so it was I was like, oh, that takes me back to like my memories of people playing like Halo and stuff like that, because I never really just got into the competitive scene, and the handful of times I would see that, I want to say like maybe when I played like the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer or something like that, people would do that kind of crap, and I was just like, oh God, you children on the internet, like, ha ha ha, yes, fine, you're crouching on top of my body, whatever.
On Halo, it really was less of like the competitive scene and more just like the online culture.
Oh yeah.
Like I have a very like story that I used to tell about like my experience in Halo voice chat, specifically Halo 3's voice chat. I can't really tell that story anymore because there's verbiage that was commonplace back then that is just not okay to say now. But it like,
it probably wasn't great to say back then either.
Oh, not at all. No. But like, I could tell this story third hand and use the actual terminology that person used, being like, I'm not saying it, this person said it, and it being, not totally faux pas.
Yeah.
But it's just, but now I wouldn't even dare consider using some of the term. The world's changed since you and I were younger.
Very true. Absolutely.
We've talked at length about it before, about just like the rampant dissonance between where we are as like adults who remember being teenagers during a bunch of different time. And I don't mean like we're old men now, but it's like there's been a lot of social progress in a very short amount of time that we've been able to observe. And it's great. But that also means like stuff that we used to say or do is definitely not like, we can look back and be objective and say it was wrong for us to even use it then, but it was also within the time, like within the scope of the times. Like I was a real, like I'll just say it, I was a real edgelord as a kid. I was always trying to be edgy. I was always trying to be like, trying to do this, and like I was a try-hard edgelord, and it was terrible. I was a terrible, terrible person. Not really that bad, but but the fact of the matter is this: I used to like to say stuff that was controversial, and I knew would put people in a tizzy. And most of the time that was actually far less about, bugging people who were socially progressive and more bugging people who were socially stagnant or even regressive. But I would still use terminology that is just definitely not okay to use today. And but to my point though, like online culture, especially online culture. So Easy Clap is basically like the new, like I wouldn't say it goes as far as like the, to the detriment of teabagging somebody, but I would say that it's a nice little like when you're about to close the door and you have the last word, and it's like Easy Clap, like done, Easy Clap, just such an easy thing to do, whatever, and it kind of like irks you a little bit, but at the same time, like I don't encounter it enough because I don't play competitive games enough to run into that all the time. But it's totally standard. It's called BM, bad manners. But whatever. Like, and nobody's being toxic if they just put an Easy Clap at the end of the game.
Yeah. It's basically just the inverse GG.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a mean way of saying well, sometimes people go GG Easy Clap even.
Yeah.
Like, good game. It was easy for us, but good game, It's a little condescending, but whatever. Speaking of which, Sinatraa actually was, when he was, so Sinatraa came into the Overwatch League in a very unique way in that it was rumored that he had $1 million contract. Prior to the Overwatch League existing, there was no age restrictions on the youngest age that you could have as a player. So Sinatraa started playing professional Overwatch when he was 16, 17 years old. Come around for the Overwatch League, he signed at the same time that a couple other players under the age of 18 are signed, and it comes out that actually they can't play. So for the majority of the first season, Sinatraa couldn't play because he was under the age of 18, and after he did turn 18, he came into a squad that had kind of already solidified itself a little bit. And so him and Super, who were kind of the two people that NRG was building the shock around, were kind of disruptive a little bit, but it wasn't until season 2 when they showed what actually can happen when they have a squad focused around these two players. It was during the GOATS meta where teamwork was so just, you need to be so concise and so on point with pinpoint precision on how you're utilizing your abilities. And Sinatraa was playing Zarya at the time, who's a tank, not even a DPS character. But by the time DPS Rollock came out, he was doing just fine as well with his Doomfist. But by the time we get to where we are now, Sinatraa is kind of old hat. He's not being played. His value as a player is going down because people are pointing out, hey, the MVP of Season 2 isn't playing at all.
Mm-hmm.
MVP of Season 1's Jonak. Jonak is just an absolute Overwatch god.
I mean, isn't this the kind of the tradition or the life cycle of esports gamer kind of culture, right? I feel like, since I'm always tangential to it, but it feels like I always hear, oh, because of how like quickly your reflexes and stuff drop off after, age 21 or 25 or something like that. Like old esports players are not like a commonplace kind of thing in games like this. It is young, like very young people, and then it's just a constantly churning like flow of very young people. The first to kind of give my own background on this, the only time I ever like heard about Sinatraa prior to this, as not somebody following the sport, is when he was one of the few people I've ever seen like beat Greg in a Twitter poll popularity contest when it was Greg versus Sinatraa in like Barstool Esports Player of the Year or something like that. Which admittedly Greg absolutely should not have been in, but it's still I was amazed to see.
Greg is the captain of the Wingstop.
Yes, yeah.
Super Smash Brothers Ultimate esports team.
Yes,
everybody knows that.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the fact that like Greg tweeted out to and like was getting like his publicizing of that poll got him like more votes than most of the other like polls that were going on in that round or whatever. But like the fact that Sinatraa and the SF Shocks kind of like crew backed their guy up as well to the point that they beat Greg out was, I was just like, oh, okay, like this guy is clearly a big deal in the esports scene, or at least he has a very dedicated fan base in the esports scene. And that was like a year and a half ago. So it doesn't surprise me that he's gone from like that to MVP to now nothing, just given my layman's understanding of kind of the esports gamer life cycle. It seems like, hey, you play these things competitively, you get an audience, and then you go and join like 100 Thieves or something where you're going to keep playing competitively, but you're also going to be making most of your money from like streaming or something like that. Yeah,
it's interesting because Sinatra's streams used to be without camera and without voice, like he didn't bother with it.
Mm-hmm.
So he always tracked low. He now has a much more impressive stream in quality. But I would also say that it's important to note that this was coming. So the big announcement that he was going to Valorant, not that big of an announcement. It kind of is upsetting that when you are the face of a league, you drop out mid-season. And it makes, like, there's plenty of reasons why he did it. Clearly he enjoys Valorant a lot. It's his opportunity to get into a scene early enough, because Valorant's still in beta. It's 2 weeks old, as far as public access goes. But it's clear that he's able to play a game that he wants to play more. And, like, I don't fault him for that. The things that I get hung up on are a couple of things. One, he accepted the MVP. The MVPs get a skin at the end of, like, towards the end of a season. So the prior year MVP usually gets their skin about midway through the season, and it's released to the public. And it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a custom skin that they have direct input on. Sinatra's given his input on his MVP skin. It's probably finished. It's probably all but finished. Now Blizzard Activision's in a situation where it's like, okay, well, what do we say about this? Blizzard Activision's been real quiet about it. The only people to really talk about it are the San Francisco Shock. They did a very abrupt out of nowhere, thank you, Sinatraa, because the story leaked to ESPN that he was leaving for Valorant. It was a big deal to have it first off be leaked and then immediately have Sinatraa confirm it and have the San Francisco Shock confirm it out of just completely out there. It's a little demoralizing if you're a Shock fan. I've seen a lot of Shock fans get kind of like, because they want to support Sinatraa, but at the same time, Sinatra's leaving the team in the middle of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is he as impactful as he could have? Like,
I mean, yeah, like at the same time, like if they're real fans, they would know that he hasn't been playing anyway. So it's not really a huge blow to the team outside of like the perception of he's leaving. So we're on the ropes. It would be like if Steph is it Steph Williams? Steph
Curry?
Steph Curry, yeah. It would be like if he like was out for injury or something, or not playing, not starting, and then got traded mid-season or something like that, right?
I mean, I would say it's quite different. Imagine if that he was not playing, he was benched mid-season though. He says, "Cool, I'm going to leave to go play baseball."
So it's just he's another Jordan.
Here's the thing, Michael Jordan did that at the end of the season. He didn't leave his team in the middle of the season. There's a lot to say if he had held out till the end of the season. And here's the thing I want to put out there. It's entirely possible that was going to be the situation. If it didn't get leaked, would we have gotten the announcement that he was leaving? I don't know. Like, I really don't know. Their hand was really forced when ESPN published this article.
I mean, well, like ESPN publishing it, like, that doesn't change the terms of when he's leaving. So like if ESPN was publishing like he's leaving the Shock, they would have said he's leaving the Shock at the end of the season versus he's leaving the Shock now mid-season. Like so like it seems to me that the deal was already done. He was already leaving.
Yeah.
And I mean like if you're going to get him out of your contract, and because there's probably stuff behind the scenes of like, hey, if he asked for his release, okay, then we don't have to pay him, the $500,000 we were going to continue paying him or something like that. Whatever the deal was, we're going to release him. It's a good time for that right now with everybody trying to kind of tighten their belts given the ongoing circumstances. So I don't think that would have changed I think whatever the deal was set in stone, and ESPN just happened to get the scoop on it before the Shock was ready to make it public, maybe.
Yeah, personally, for me, I don't know. Like, that's the thing, I don't know. I think it definitely leans more towards what you were saying. But the fact that there's this possibility kind of like scratches the back of my head. Mm-hmm. It's back there. Because that's the thing, I'm speculating at this point. I'm deeply speculating.
Yeah, and
I
again,
will say, though, it's important to note that there is a distinct clause in Overwatch League rules that your players can't leave your team to go play for another game's team in the same organization. Because my thought, and a lot of people's thought was, well, NRG is just going to swap them from Overwatch to Valorant.
Okay.
Because, of course, NRG is going to have a Valorant squad. They have a Call of Duty League squad. They have an Overwatch League squad. They have a league, they have tons of, they're invested deeply into esports as a whole. Yeah. So, of course, they're going to have a Valorant team. So it makes sense. Like, just transfer him over. He still remains with his NRG contract. You switch some things around, renegotiate it a little bit, change some things around, because here's an important thing to also note. I'm saying that a lot. I apologize. But it's important really to take into consideration that Valorant doesn't have an established professional scene yet. Yeah. And I don't mean like, there's aren't people who play on a professional level. There really are. Like, people who are extremely good at this game are playing it. Mm-hmm. They're playing it in non-official sponsored tournaments. Yeah. Like, they are developing a pro scene for it.
Yeah. But it's still new enough. Riot has not formally established like a league for it yet.
Exactly. It's to people being signed to a team to play Valorant is a big risk. And it's doubly so for somebody like Sinatraa, who's so firmly established that he could ride this wave to the end of the season. But the fact that he's trying to get into the Valorant scene this early is indicative, I think, of a little bit of, like, I would say he's 20 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, like, none of this surprises me. It's trying to get in a game, very early on before there's an established scene, because worst case scenario, he's going to try and become one of the best Valorant players, and he's going to leverage his popularity into streaming Valorant or something, or he'll just move on to the next game if a scene, a professional scene, does not actually like coalesce around Valorant. But given Riot's track record, I think it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, and a matter of like getting the game out of beta, really. So like I can get and at the same time, you don't want to keep committing time and energy towards Overwatch League and Overwatch, that game, and the meta and all that stuff, because it's going to be way harder to try and split your focus between the two things. So I get like this is like you said, it's Michael Jordan leaving for basketball. It's just happening mid-season, or baseball, and it's just happening mid-season because he can't focus on both things at once. It makes sense to me. If that's kind of like the motivation behind it, that hey, I'm not being used, you guys don't need me on the team anymore, I'm gonna go do this thing I'd rather do and try and hit the ground floor on that side of things. Makes sense.
And that's fair. Yeah, it makes total sense. My whole thing was, I thought for a while when he announced that he was leaving, I thought, okay, he's just going to be signed to NRGs. Then people publish a, like, I guess, bylaw, a regulatory ruling that you can't do that.
Yeah, and I get
it kicked me because Sinatraa is so close with the owner of NRG. He, like, NRG as a company has like deeply invested in Sinatraa, and I can only imagine how, like, and then here's another point to make. Shock had built their organization around two pillars, Super and Sinatraa, and one of these pillars is leaving. Like, it really does put the question of what is the look of the Shock going to be, not just for the rest of the season, but really when you start thinking as an organization, one of the people you were going to be doing it, are you just going to put somebody else in that slot? Are you going to change kind of how you were building this up? Like things with COVID-19 coming along, how does that change things in the long term? So they were looking, and Shock has always been called this organization that was looking at the long term, looking at the the long game, versus other organizations looking at the short game. How do we mitigate the problems we're having rather than investing in future opportunities?
Yeah.
And they were seen as being very smart. They placed, at the end of season 1, they placed very admirably lower of the mid-tier teams, and that was great because they are a young team. They cut their teeth in season 1. They really matured in season 2. And I think they're really still a dominant team in season 3, but for some reason it's been clear that they are a bit lost, whether it's because weekly meta pool changes aren't good for their squad because they don't have players who have enough experience to kind of take on the task of an ever-evolving meta like some other teams do. It becomes a really interesting kind of perspective on how the future of this team is going to develop. How is the league dealing with it? Because the league is not acknowledging that he's left. And on top of that, you have other problems, like it looks like rumors are true that the Vancouver Titans are releasing their entire team because they won't come back from Korea because of COVID-19.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to dive too much deeper into this.
Yeah, sorry, this is not an Overwatch League podcast.
It's so weird, and we dive into this a little bit every time, like, year on, and we like jump off with Overwatch League stuff from like we're spending a lot of time on this, and very few people in our audience, I imagine, are getting anything out of this section of the show. Maybe we should kick this to the end of the episode. But I mean, it is a fascinating conversation, even as somebody who's not invested, because you're enlightening me on a lot of stuff that I don't know because I don't follow the scene. But at the same time, I like you mentioning the idea that there's a clause in the Overwatch League contract saying that people can't be moved from an Overwatch team to a CSGO team in the same organization. I get Overwatch putting that clause in their contract because Overwatch is going to be marketing their stuff around those stars as well. So they don't want to have to build up stuff around Sinatraa, and then Sinatraa leaves Overwatch to go play CSGO with nothing stopping the like NRG from doing that. So it acts as a deterrent from people doing that. So it is like, hey, yeah, if you're not going to play our game, you can't just move to another game on the same team. Like, you have to basically leave that team to go do it. Now, I don't know if there's like a 90-day no complete element to that clause that means, okay, he has to go play with another team in Valorant for, for whatever extended period of time, and then he can come back to NRG to get around that if he does have that close tie and does want to kind of maintain good terms with NRG. And I'm sure those are the kinds of conversations that they've continued to have behind closed doors, is whatever his future with NRG might look like. But yeah, fascinating stuff. And
yes,
it's
but also
certainly interesting to me.
Yeah. I just wanted to also, if you were wondering why Sinatraa was coming up, it's because literally 30 minutes worth of content could be pulled, plus 30 minutes plus of content could just be discussed in regards to, it ties into 2 games, one new, one older, esports as a whole, but also it's shaken up the kind of gaming sphere a little bit. So if you're wondering why these esports are in your regular gaming news, now you know.
Yeah. Well, let me dive into, to take it back to just regular nonsensical gaming stuff. A couple things I've been playing. The main one I want to highlight here, I guess, would be Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've continued playing that. I had a very busy week in Animal Crossing, notably because I had like high turnip prices that I opened up to the public, and people just kind of came and went from my island all day, and it was a very nice, like, refreshing sense of what I've been doing in that game. And it was cool just
thank you, by the way.
Thank you for swinging by. Some of my villagers were asking about you like the day or two later.
It's because I stole fruit.
Oh, did you steal fruit? Nice.
Yeah.
They didn't say that.
Because they know snitches get stitches. I told them.
No, they were like, hey, I heard he made bank on selling turnips, and I was like, yes, he did, along with everybody else you guys are talking about. But yeah, that was really cool. And like I was telling my mom and my aunt today, because they came by we had like a socially distanced lunch here at my complex, where they basically like brought me McDonald's, and we just kind of sat out in a little picnic bench. And I was telling them like all these things I'd been doing in Animal Crossing for like the last month or so, basically like, hey, yeah, this is a game that I've been spending a lot of my time with. My mom, who listens to the show, has heard a lot of the stuff before already. But your
mother listens to the show?
Yeah, she listens to the podcast. She supports.
Hi, Trevor's mom.
Hi, my mom. And so yeah, they were like, so she was like in the loop, and she was even, it was weird because I was getting like Polygon articles about Animal Crossing stuff that she was sending me that I was seeing before I was seeing it in like Twitter feed and stuff. Like there was an early like glitch that was happening where people, if you were like kicking them off your island or something via Amiibo or something, it was causing an issue. And my mom sent me like an article basically saying like, hey, be careful of like inviting people onto your island because it might glitch out or something like that. And I was like, this is weird that my mom is seeing these things and sending them to me before I'm seeing them in like just my circles. But I love it, and she has continued to send me like a couple little articles here and there. But yeah, so I was kind of talking to them about all the things I've been doing, and I was telling them, yeah, I had like 100 people kind of come and go from my island this week while they were making a whole bunch of money off these turnips, and I made twice as much money this week. I basically doubled my bell count this last week as a result of being able to sell the turnips as high as I did, and then everybody kind of coming and leaving tips and all that stuff. And it ended up, I was telling them, yeah, I've been doing this on the island, and afterwards I kind of like I moved a whole bunch of my things around on my island, because if I ever have this again, I don't want people having to walk as far to get to the shop. So I've got like the shop moved to like right near the entrance and all that stuff. So basically was telling them that and how I had my island laid out, and I got to the point where I was like, yeah, and then I've got this thing. Actually, you know what? I just kind of want to show you this. So I came up, grabbed my game, brought it downstairs, and just kind of like sat them down. I was standing behind with like the Switch docked up. It was like that original commercial that came out showing like, hey, this is how you can play it like on a controller with like people watching and stuff on a picnic table. And I was showing them kind of, here's my orchard section, here's my little neighborhood with all my guys, here's all of my flowers and all the hybrid things that I'm trying to do crossbreeding wise. And then I got to a little section that I put in kind of the top little mountain, the back like left corner of my map, so northwest corner-ish of my map, that I put together up there like a few weeks ago when I got a DIY a recipe for like a tombstone, basically. And I was like, oh, this is a slightly morbid thing to have put in this game, but I have the stones or whatever to craft it, so I'll do that. And I just got the idea then to kind of create a little memorial site for my grandmother who had passed away a couple months ago. And we talked about on the show, and it was just like,
that's really cool.
I'm just gonna put a little thing on there. Never like with the intent. It was just kind of like for me, it was a thing up there. I started planting like white flowers around it, and I put in a little I've got like a stone or arch around there, and just kind of a few like stone decorative things. I posted it.
I just casually threw together a touching memorial to my sweet grandmother who passed away, but it's like whatever, I had the stones for it. I mean, Trevor, you're making me want to cry.
It was. I mean, like it was something I just kind of put in there for me with like not really any kind of intent of sharing that, and like it. And since I don't have like actively people coming to my island and like walking and touring around. When did you put that in? A couple weeks ago. I mean, like,
oh my gosh, I think I ran past it.
I mean, it's certainly possible.
Trevor, yeah. I ran over the flowers by your grandma's grave.
Oh, I mean, like it. I when it started, it was just like I threw a whole bunch of hyacinths up there. In the last week or so, I kind of made it more of a structured thing. Kind of threw in like a little fencing around it, and then I've put in basically all other different white types of flowers. Especially since I've now got a 5-star island, and I get like lilies of the valley flowers that occasionally grow, which only grow on like 5-star islands. So I started like putting those up there, and basically it was just kind of this little thing. But given that my mom and my aunt were the ones who'd been taking care of my grandmother for the last few years, as I was telling them about my island and all these little things I had, I was like, I don't want to spoil this for you. I just want to show you this thing that I could put in this game. And so they were both incredibly moved by it, and it was just a nice little cool thing to share with them. And again, I had done this a month ago or whatever without really the intent of ever sharing that with them. It just came out because they happened to come by and were asking about Animal Crossing and what I've been doing in all of my quarantine time and stuff. And so I just kind of was like, this is a cool thing I can show you, that this game allows me to do, because like as I'm showing them the rest of my island and stuff, they're like, oh, that's cute. One of my new residents, Chatter, is like a little actor, and he's kind of talking to me or whatever, and I show them like I caught a frog in the pond or something like that, and they were cool with that. And then I come up and bring them to like the mountaintop where I have this little thing overlooking the sea, of my grandmother's, kind of like my little memorial for my grandmother in the game. And it was just a nice little touching moment to share with the two of them, given that they were her daughters. And so, yeah, that was a cool little Animal Crossing thing that I got to share with my aunt and my mom today. And that, along with just everything else of showing them like my island and over here I did this, and here on my beach I put a little like workout station. I've got like a treadmill and a pull-up bar and a climbing wall and stuff. And it was just kind of, it took me back to being 7-year-old Trevor, showing my mom the cool things I was building in The Sims, or I guess I probably wasn't 7, but like going back to like, here's all the cool things I put in The Sims, or here's all the cool things I did in X, Y, and Z game. Kind of like walking in through that. It was a very weird sense of nostalgia that I certainly haven't had in many, many years, but it was just very cool as a 35-year-old man to be sharing like those excited details, and my mom, who's never really been the gamer of the family or anything, to get excited at the things that I'm showing them, or think, oh, that's really cool that you're doing that. It was a really cool little thing. And so thank you to Animal Crossing for creating this weird little cute game that allowed me to share those little moments with my mom and my aunt. How are you doing on your Animal Crossing stuff? Clearly not as emotionally impactful and resonant, I'm sure, but
no, not at all. Not at all. I've been taking my Animal Crossing kind of growth of my island very slow. I have not gotten any new people since I started with like when you had to like bring in like the new people, like 3 new people.
Oh, okay. You're still sitting at 5 on your island?
Yep, I kind of like it.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I like that there is more wilderness than civilization on my island.
Mm.
I like that there is an entire section of the island that they go to and they visit and they travel to and they like check out stuff over there, and everybody gets along. I have my best buddy is Apple. who I don't know if he's a little bear or a little chipmunk. Either way, he wants to be a pop star. And you know what? I don't know how you being on this island is going to help you do that, man. But you're definitely the pop star of this island, like 100%. Nobody's cooler than you.
I mean,
and the best part is he's like, hey, like, I guess it'd be cool if you're cool with it, I'd be cool with it. Like, what up? It's like I'm clearly the coolest guy on this island, but like this kid wants, like, this little guy wants to like be cool too, and like I like him. I like everybody on my island.
Nice. Yeah,
because if I don't like you on my island, I will kick you off. I will do everything I can to drive you off.
Nice.
My island is a utopia. It is Nuketopia. It is meant to be for peace.
Yes.
My flag is a black background with a bell satchel on it.
Apple appears to be a hamster type.
He's a hamster? Oh, he's so cute.
She is a hamster type. Yes.
Well, that makes sense. She wants to be she mentions she wants to be a pop diva. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Listen, it's cool. Whatever you are on my island, I accept you no matter what. Unless you are that dumb gorilla.
Everybody hates that dumb gorilla.
He's so dumb.
I know Joey has one too, I think, and I'm just like, oh, it's weird. I like whatever. I've gotten to the point where I've had a couple people basically like show up, and I'm like, oh, like, can I get new people on my island? Because it had been capped at 10 or whatever, and they show up at the campsite, and I'm like, oh, I can invite them, but if I do, it's basically trading off somebody who's ready to leave. I've only had one character outright like leave my island, basically come to me and say, hey, I think it's time for me to go, and they ended up going to Lauren's island. So they're,
which makes sense.
I believe they're now living with Lauren, our friend Lauren Wilson, at I think her island is called like Lakeview or something like that. So yeah, I was like, oh, neat. Take good care of Goose for me. But yeah, like I enjoy the game. So if you're only sitting at 5 people still, you haven't rolled credits then and gotten like the KK Slider concert and stuff?
No, I have not. I have collected a lot of KK Slider albums.
Yeah.
I have in each of my rooms. I have a player that can play them.
Yep.
And they're all playing different ones.
Mm-hmm.
I have right now I have a techno, I have a samba, and I have a like country one going on.
Cool.
So it's been pretty great. It's been pretty great. I have enjoyed it quite a bit. Right now, kind of like my focus, I just had the fox show up on my island, and that's been cool. I just upgraded yeah. I got the art from him, and that's let me actually open up that entire wing of the museum.
Yep.
That's been great. I paid off and got I finally I did accidentally started building a bridge right when I was needing to start paying off a big loan.
Uh-huh.
And so I've kind of been splitting my time between the two, but I finally paid off that loan, took out the next one, I've got the second room extension finally. I've just been kind of going slow with it, I'm not too hot on burning through this content because I see people going kind of nuts with it at the end game. And I'm like, that's cool if you want to, but I kind of only want to do some minor changes to my island. I don't want to totally redo things with it. I kind of just like the idea of at my end game is going to be I'm going to move my house from the really wonderful spot that I have it to a very excluded corner at the top right of my map, and I'm going to kind of excavate out the I have a 3-tier mountain basically on my island, and so I'm just going to kind of excavate that out a bit. I'm going to put my home there. I'm going to really use it to kind of give myself a corner of this island that just belongs to me, and I'm gonna have my own stuff there, and I'll go and I'll visit the rest of everybody else on the island. But this really is I kind of have the idea that I want to keep things if the rest of them want to all live together in one corner of the island, that's great. I'm happy to be the recluse who is on the other side of that island. And that's kind of that's my goal, is eventually I want to get to that point.
Yeah. I when I started moving my my shop and stuff to make it easier if I end up inviting people over to sell turnips or what again, I got I was like, oh cool, okay, I got them those things where I want them, and I was like, oh crap, but now I'm super far away from the shop. And since I spend enough time going back and forth between my house and the shop, I was like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and just trade myself off and take the little kind of I'd put myself more or less at like the Cape on the right side of the map that I had, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna move myself into a more centralized location so that I can be. So now I'm basically right between like resident services and the Nook's Cranny shop, and I'm like, this is cool. I still have like plenty of space around there for me, and I have like. I gave myself like a little pool backyard or side yard kind of thing, so it's fun. And yeah, it's just kind of like I've got that there, and I think like I look at my island, I'm like, I'm happy with how this is laid out now. But in a week that might change, and I might want to switch it up again. And I like that it gives me the opportunity to do that for a minimal number of bells. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying going balls to the wall when like new stuff like releases. Like we're in May now, so yesterday a handful of new fish and bugs came out to us basically here in the northern hemisphere, and I think I've got all but one of them already collected. And
that's cool.
I'm only like 2 fossils away from having the fossil part of my museum complete.
Nice.
So, and then I've had the fox come by 3 times now, so I've got 3 pieces of art hanging up in the museum, and I like as somebody new to Animal Crossing, I love the idea of him where like he'll sell you some of the stuff he'll sell you is counterfeit. And so it's like, the museum won't take it if you get one of the counterfeit ones. But I'm seeing like posts on like Polygon and stuff that are saying like, yeah, the counterfeit stuff still has like interesting things about it where like one of the portraits might wink at you or something like that, and there's like this notion that some of the counterfeit art is haunted basically, and like changes colors or something like that if kind of left to its own devices when you've got it like published or like just kind of sitting out on display. And I'm like, that's cool that there's still like, even if you get one of these counterfeit pieces, it's cool that there's still something you can do with it. So
I agree.
Yeah, cool little stuff. Really enjoying Animal Crossing. We talked a little bit about it, but I'll go ahead and give you kind of a chance to dive in a little bit more. So you've been playing Valorant. How are you enjoying Valorant? And just kind of the general sense of the game.
Valorant's a lot of fun. Like it's a lot of fun. I will say it's not a game that I can play for like long periods of time. I maybe will play like a match or 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think the longest I did in succession was like 3 matches. It's a lot. It's a lot of fun though.
Okay, so define a match for me then, because I feel like I watched you play way more than 3 matches when you did like one of your first streams.
You watched me play one match. A match has up to 20 rounds.
Oh, geez. Okay. Then
it's whoever. Basically, you have to get to match point. 13 is match point. You have to win 13 matches, or you have to win 13 rounds to win the match.
Okay.
So you can have some of them that go 12-12
mm-hmm.
until somebody wins that final one. And it's really good. Like it's really cool because it does put an emphasis on this is a shooter that is like you can come in, you can have a little bit of fun, but it's also very forgiving in that not every round counts like it does for Overwatch, where if it's like, well, if you screw this up, then you basically like lose. You can be like, okay, I screwed up, but I can learn from it and I can rebound from it. I can like learn a little bit of the habits of some of these players. I can kind of adapt to it. It's very cool. It's very, very cool. It's very unforgiving, and it's like somebody shoots you, you get shot. Like it's for real. You're lucky somebody doesn't just like light you up and kill you the moment they see you, if you can get away. Another thing is that it's doing what Counter-Strike does, which is if you're moving, your gun is really inaccurate. You need to be standing still, and so that leads to positioning being incredibly important, because the more stable you are, the more you stay still, the more stable you are. So you have to balance your movement in these very tense situations, because you make one wrong move, somebody could just light you up and just blow you away. Even if you even see them first, but you're still moving, like it's great. It's great in that there is a lot of thought that has to go into how you're playing the game. But I love pretty much all the operators that I've played so far. I will say I'm not the biggest fan of Jade for a lot of contextual reasons, one of which is so everybody else who has like a wall ability, it's like an elemental wall. One of them is like a poison wall. If you go through it, you get damage from poison. One's a fire wall. If you go through it, you get damage from fire. But she has an ice wall that basically just like locks off a part of the map. Like you
She's
can
basically
lock off
May.
a doorway. Yeah, she can May wall basically an entire opening, and it's there for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so she is crucial for setting some stuff up. And if you don't have a Jid on your team and the other team does, you're in a rough place because you don't have access to the abilities to her ultimate ability is to revive a player. Anyway, so her ultimate ability is to revive a player. Her other abilities are to heal. She has, and that's a rechargeable thing, so that recharges over time. She has the ability to drop down a field that slows people when they walk through it, which is super annoying because she can lob that orb around to places, and then she can Maywall and block off this entire area, and you can only really get through it if you damage it, and that just tells everybody where you're at, and they can prep and set up for you.
Mm-hmm.
It can be brutal. It can be very, very brutal sometimes. But I will say that I do enjoy the game overall. I've had way more positive experiences than negative experiences from it. I've enjoyed streaming it. It's been a fun thing. I can play usually like a match or maybe even a match and a half if I stream it. So, like last night I had like a 50-minute stream where I played it for that period of time. And then it was good and done.
And is it still are they still only like inviting people if you are like watching other people's? Because I remember since I watched you stream, I got like a notification on Twitch basically saying like, hey, link your Riot account for a chance to like gain access to the beta. Are they still doing that, or have they opened it up to like you can sign up for the beta?
They have not opened it up yet. No, it is still in a situation where it's still in a situation where you have to link your Riot ID to it. Okay.
Interesting because and then my last little question, knowing virtually nothing about Valorant or League of Legends, but is my understanding that like these are the same heroes from League of Legends, just now recontextualized in a FPS?
No,
so it's different heroes, it's different legends basically.
They're not even legends. They're called operators, and their situation's very different. I have not read much up about the lore, surprisingly.
Okay. Because for some reason I thought when and admittedly like I only tangentially paid attention when Riot kind of did their like spree of like, here are all the other games we're working on, late last year maybe. I for some reason I had in my head that they were capitalizing on like the cast of characters and beloved cast of characters from League of Legends for that audience, and basically saying, hey, we're going to take those characters and we're going to put them in this kind of game, we're going to put them in this kind of game and stuff. So I clearly just completely got the wrong idea in my head around all that.
That's totally fair, and don't get me wrong, Trevor, I would love it if that was the case, because that would mean some more KDA content, but
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so Valorant's fun. Watch my stream, and you can get the drop for the beta if you want.
Yeah.
Drops are enabled, folks.
Woot woot.
And interesting enough, somebody posted they basically reran one of their VODs,
and people could get codes from that too.
Yeah, people can get codes from that.
Cool.
Because you're streaming Valorant.
Yeah.
You're just not live streaming it.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. They did that, and they got like a ton of subscribers and all sorts of stuff, and like they did it for a long period of time. It was really interesting to see the statistics after that. Some people were like, oh, that's just not fair, and other people were like, that's really brilliant.
People care about weird things. Cool. So one of the other games that I've been playing that got a lot of play last week when Frank talked about it is after Final Fantasy VII, I picked up Persona 5 Royal, which I'd been on the fence for a long time, just because I was like, I played the original Persona 5 twice to get the platinum in that, and that was 2016. So if it still felt like new enough that I didn't know if I was eager to hop into the game again for another 100-hour plus playthrough just for the little bit of or the new content that they put in the game. But hearing Frank talk about it, and then just seeing how many other people I know who've been playing it and enjoying it, I was like, all right, I'm in an RPG kick. I don't have anything else to play at the moment, really, that was like clawing at me. So sure, I'll pick up Persona 5 Royal. And at this point, we were talking a little bit before we started recording. I'm through the fourth palace at this point. So I've been like drastically consuming the game in the last week and a half. I think that's 40 hours into the game or something like that. You were playing it back before Final Fantasy VII dropped, and you're a palace-ish behind me. So what are you thinking of the changes to the game kind of so far?
I mean, the quality of life changes have been just absolutely excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Just being able to go out, or not even go out, just being able to do things around the cafe after like
coming back from Mementos or in a palace or something.
After coming back from Mementos in a palace, it's so nice.
Yeah.
There's so much more room for activities.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it because like I have a knowledge of the game, but it's old enough that I'm not set in stone about what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I decided instead of being like, I can look it up and try to get the platinum in one go, like whatever, I just want to kind of experience the game, man.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been kind of running through it and enjoying my time with it a lot. I will say that it's really nice to see more of what you are getting from the game as far as, how do I put this? You are getting much more early on than I would say you would have gotten from a remake like Golden.
Yeah, did you played Persona 4 versus Persona 4 Golden, or did you only play Golden?
Yeah.
You had? Okay, because I only ever played Golden, and my understanding is that like was it not Margaret, but the girl who works in the Velvet Room, like limo or whatever, like she was pretty much the added confidant in that one, right? And she very much felt like tangentially related to the thing. So like playing through it, like nothing jumped out at me, but finding out after the fact that like, oh, that was what was added. Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, Akechi's confidant was added as well to the game.
Yeah, in this, yeah. I'm saying.
Oh no. Akechi is the cop partner from 4.
Is he Akechi? Because I thought Akechi's the guy in this one. The celebrity detective in this one is Goro.
Oh,
Akechi.
you are right. You are right. Who am I thinking of?
I know who you're talking about though. It's just his name's not Akechi. The same kind of character. Yeah, the Dojima's partner guy.
Yeah, Dojima's partner. He is he is the added confidant for Golden.
Okay.
His stuff where you like meet with him on Thursdays at Junez.
Yeah.
So it's totally added to it.
So
otherwise,
it was him
he's
and
in a very tangent.
Marie was the one I was thinking of, who's completely added in Golden. And like hers is like, I get that. Yeah, she's completely kind of disparate from it. Like she doesn't interact with the rest of the cat. You only deal with her in kind of the Velvet Room stuff, and then as you start to like bring her out into the world or whatever. So it made sense that like she was completely added on. Whereas so far I'm enjoying that how Kasumi has kind of been introduced, and she still feels like tangential so far to everybody else. But
I have so many theories about this kid.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to the part where she really starts playing a major role yet. And then and they have added to Akechi in this version, and so I've started building up like a confidant with him as well. So
and then there's the doctor.
Yeah, and the doctor. So yeah, I'm enjoying, and like I am prioritizing like those confidant tracks because I'm like, this is the new stuff. I do like though that like at least I don't remember these things being in the original, but like a lot of confidant like scenes end with a scene of you like getting back to LeBlanc, and like they call you up as a like thank you for hanging out with me, and they have like one more little dialogue option thing for you that you can use to continue building. I feel like on the confidant side of things, they're giving like more options or more availability to like build up those levels quicker. As you said, kind of the ability to do stuff after you've been to a palace or after you've been to Mementos, even if it's just in the cafe, still gives you more time to build up stats and stuff like that. So it's there, and then they're like the trade-off is they've accelerated when you get things for combat, or just completely removed like the guidelines of when you get things for combat, like the ability to baton pass right out the gate kind of thing, makes combat so much quicker. So that's where like you're saving a ton of time in the game. Is like combat, like going into a palace, you can clear out a palace in a couple hours or something, when it might have been 4 hours with the number of battles and just the speed of the battles in the original game. So I appreciate that, like what they've done with pacing on that front in order to allow for the added story moments and stuff. And I like that some of the story is being doled out piecemeal throughout the game on just days that you weren't doing something originally. But I'm still prior to kind of the real big dump of new stuff. So I'm looking forward to it though. Yeah, I'm having a good time with it. I got back to Makoto and I started doing her scenes and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I remember why you were my best girl originally, and it pains me that I'm gonna like see what's going on with the new Kasumi character, and I can't just pick Makoto again as best girl, because I'm just like, oh, I miss her. But yeah,
of course you can. Who says otherwise?
I mean, absolutely I can, but just for my own, like, I want to see the most of the new content as I can, so I'm gonna explore the relationship with Kasumi more than with Makoto. But Makoto will always be my first special girl in that game. So shout out to Makoto. Yeah. Anything else to add on Persona 5 Royal? Obviously, again, for people who listen to the show, Frank talked a lot about it last week, so we're hitting a lot of some of the same beats that he'd kind of talked about as well. But just kind of
I don't really have much else to say. No,
echoing the coolness, and yeah, you haven't been back to the game really since Final Fantasy VII, probably. Is that right?
That is accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I look forward to when you can hop back into it and kind of continue along, and we can maybe do an ultimate like Persona 5 Royal spoiler cast or something at the end with you, me, Frank, and maybe we'll grab like Alex or Nabashin from Irrational Passions and see if they want to join us for something like that. So yeah. So one of the things that you've been doing, Cam, that I want to throw to you, because it caught my eye when you were doing it, and I was like, do you want to talk about this on the show? And you're like, sure. You have been following and responding to Am I an Asshole Reddit posts on Twitter. So what sparked that, and like what you been doing there, buddy?
So here's the thing. I'm working from home now.
Mm-hmm.
Working from home has done a lot to kind of change the shift on how I use my time during the day. It used to be I did everything I could to try to like not stay in the like on the floor. After even like during any of my breaks or lunches or anything. I've totally flipped that. Like I sometimes don't leave my room until dinner. Because my work computer station I set it up in my bedroom because that's the only room that's technically mine in the house. And so I've just been doing that, and it's been good as far as like my work quality goes. I did very well this quarter. Or this past month. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I would say that, like there's been time now that I am on my phone. I am not at work. So like, I don't have to like keep it hidden, or like I can just like be on it for a minute or two just to kind of check some stuff out. And, not where I'm at my station, but like on my break, like instead of it being like I have to walk all the way outside, yada, 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 I can just head over to a corner of my room and sit down and check some stuff out on Twitter. But really what ended up happening is I've kind of burned through content as far as like stuff people are making.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've gotten bored of it because it's just more of the same. Like it was fine when like there was the tediousness of like my day-to-day life, my commute, etc., kind of like the content filling the void, but I don't have that void anymore.
Yeah.
And so now it's a matter of like, am I actually interested in it or not? What I will say is what caused this to happen is I just kind of looked at a random one that got retweeted by somebody, and because it's the Twitter account that people will like post and then it'll retweet their post. and it just kind of puts it out there. And I was like, like, it's one thing when you're on Reddit and you're on that, you can click on it to see like what's the story behind this. You go through and then you leave a comment. These are just kind of being put out there, and like, screw it. Like, nobody cares about what I tweet anyway. So let's just go ahead and like give out some not hot takes or cold takes, but some hard takes on kind of people's behavior. And I originally was just going to do it where it's like I said, yes, you are, or no, you aren't. But then you get into some really interesting ones. There was one where somebody felt very conflicted because they had cut their brother and mother off from like out of their life. And because the brother claimed he was borrowing the car to like do something with it, and their car, I shouldn't say he or she, they didn't specify, their car to do it with, and then they're with their same sex partner, and things are getting kind of hot and heavy in the car because they're parked out someplace on a date, and like, for all intents and purposes, it feels like from what they're describing, they're full adults. But this person's phone is getting blown up by their mom, and it turns out their mom had their brother in spy gear, like a camera, in their dashboard so that the mother can keep an eye on them. And like, her excuse was, well, you were in a car accident, so I wanted to be able to like make sure you're okay. And it's like, this is like so many red flags are popping up all over the place here. But it really comes down to them being like, yeah, now everybody's trying to tell me that she's sick and like she might be dying, and like, it's like, clearly this is not the case, man. Like, you are not the a-hole. Like, 100%, like, you are not being an a-hole. Your brother and mom are, and like your family members are, because she's using some sort of illness, whether it's real or not, to try to exert control over you, because it's clear from other details the mother is extremely controlling and is not able to let go, and also has an issue with their same-sex relationship. So that's one thing. That was one of them.
So yeah, you basically you fell down a rabbit hole of kind of reading these things and just being like, so it seems like there's kind of a not, maybe not voyeuristic, but something in that vein of like experiencing these stories secondhand through these people and kind of getting to not even pass judgment, but just kind of like respond to them. Is kind of the sense I got, because yeah, like I said to you before we started recording, I have notifications on for like everybody on the That Nerdy Site team, so I can kind of see what everybody's up to when they're posting stuff, and
nothing makes you regret that like Chloe and me.
I mean, yeah, a little bit. Actually, Ben is the one that really just starts driving me nuts sometimes when he's just like, I'm gonna put this out there because it's my take, and my take is the only take that exists, and I'm just like, you are such a young stupid kid, and so many of his takes are just like bad takes, and I'm just like, Ben, I hate so many of the things you say, like Tobey Maguire is the best Spider-Man. Anyway, so yeah, but like
third best
I saw
second best Peter Parker,
and I can say that because I'm pretty sure he doesn't listen to this show. So
that's mean. That's mean.
No, I love Ben, and he has like, he at least like will defend his takes when we have conversations about him, but Twitter is not the place to make those kinds of like long form arguments. So I'm just like, I'm not gonna get into this. I'm just gonna like look at it, roll my eyes, and move on. But yeah, so I got like a flurry of notifications from you one day where you had like responded to just like 7 or 8 of these back to back kind of thing, and I was just like, okay, like.
And I did it all within 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, how many of these are you going to keep doing? Do I need to turn notifications off, basically?
And I was like, no, I'm going into a meeting.
Yeah.
Like, you're good.
Yeah. So yeah, it was an interesting thing, and you haven't like hopped back into it, but it caught my eye as like, that's an interesting thing that you're doing to pass the time. That's not, listening to a podcast or watching a show or something like that. So yeah, it was just kind of at the crux of it. You mentioned in one of your tweets that like that was oddly cathartic, the fact that you had just kind of gone through and responded to a whole bunch of those things. And I'm just trying to tap into a little bit of like what maybe made it cathartic for you.
Just kind of like, it's interesting to look at it because I was basically doing this to strangers.
Mm-hmm.
I make comments about like loving and supporting, or like talking to my friends all the time, talking to other people within our kind of amateur sphere of our amateur industry sphere of influence. Like, I talk to these people all the time and be like, no, you're not the a-hole. You're not like, the problem. Like, you're good, or hey, yeah, I know you're saying this, whatever, man. And like, I do that for people I know, but that always comes with, like, and you brought up Ben. Ben and I had an exchange on Twitter that was made and took a negative turn solely because there was a tonal issue with how I said something and how he read it. And immediately I was like, yeah, no, this is like, we corrected it. And it's just like, it's a hard time trying to discern tone on Twitter, like on the internet. It's cool. And like, we're good. But like, you know, that can be a tonal like shift thing, an issue with it. I can put this out here. One, these are screenshots from Reddit, so it's not like they're tagging any users on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And I can kind of just like lay out how I feel cut and dry about something. And maybe not cut and dry about all of them, because there's another one where like this guy, up until the very end of what he was writing, was like, I'm like, this guy's not the a-hole. This guy's not the a-hole. And then it gets to the very end, it's like, this is where you become the a-hole.
It's like he's writing this, you know, very heartfelt message, and then he's like, oh, and by the way, white power. And it's like, oh no, you totally are the a-hole. Okay,
not like that.
I know.
It was not a secret a-hole reveal.
Yeah, I just kind of envisioned those kinds of stories, because like I think I saw maybe the one that kicked this off for you was somebody talking about Animal Crossing, basically. Or like it was I saw a post in this vein this week of this girl who basically was like talking about how her boyfriend had completely fucked up her island, and like is he an asshole? And it was like, absolutely he's an asshole, because he was like, I want you to come see this thing I did. So he knew what he had done to fuck with your life and the amount of time that you'd put into this island. And yeah, he is absolutely being a very malicious asshole, and fuck that guy. And so I had seen that one get shared around a little bit.
Yeah, that one, I don't think I actually commented on that one. That was just one that I'd seen that kind of like started this going.
Mm-hmm.
Like it started the gears turning. One that really stood out to me was this guy was just like my girlfriend like washed my AirPods, and I was like, she needs to give me the money right now. And she's like, I don't have the money. And he's like, you should have checked the pockets. And I'm like, first off, dude, should she have checked the pockets? I don't know. Like, that's up to like your. Wait, like, did she have any knowledge that your AirPods are in your pocket? It's like get out of here, dude. No, you're the a-hole.
She was doing your laundry. Okay, then maybe she should charge you for all the time she's done your laundry. It's probably a wash. So yeah, don't be an a-hole.
Yeah, don't be an a-hole, man. Like, it was an accident. And that's what I put. I was like, it's an accident. Like, it sucks that it happened. Like, things like that have happened to me before. Like, you leave stuff in your pocket, and like, that's what happens sometimes. Like, and it sucks. But like, she was doing something kind for you, and like, it took a bad turn. It's not on her. Don't go demanding $250 from her right then and there, and then like get into a fight when she just doesn't hand you a check or like the like money in 50s into your hand. Like, come on, dude, be realistic. Like, I'm like, and I put out there, I said, you're embarrassed because you forgot to take the AirPods out of your pocket. Like, you're embarrassed because you made a goof, and you're trying to put it on her, and now you're trying to justify it on the internet, and like this is the wrong look, man. Like, you're wrong. And I'm not trying to say this as like, and the other thing about this was, it was cathartic because this is not tied to any person on the internet that I know, / would find my Twitter account making a comment about the screenshots of a Reddit post.
Mm-hmm.
Like the astronomical scale that it would take for you to be able to find my tweets about this, because like they didn't go viral, they didn't pop off.
Yeah.
I didn't get likes on any of them. It's just a matter of like me, and so I'm just like letting this out. I'm letting out some frustration about like, and it is kind of it is partially judgmental, but I can come in as somebody who's seeing your record, what you're saying happened. I can discern certain things from it, but at the end of the day, I'm going to come to a conclusion whether or not you're being an a-hole or not. Not that you're a bad person, but in this case, you're being the a-hole. And that's another thing. Especially on Twitter, things are so cut and dry sometimes. Things are so black and white. They're either a saint or a malicious predator. It's always cut and dry when you have 240 characters, I feel.
Yeah.
Something like this lets you kind of peel away layers to a situation to give nuance and context to it in a way that it feels very cathartic to make a judgment, not based off of a handful of tweets, but off of an entire personal account without the influence of other people on top of it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Anyway,
I can appreciate that. I mean, like,
yeah, it's weird though. It's weird.
It still strikes me with a hint of the same like anonymous internet troll that you see in like a comment section or something like that. Because you are passing judgment on these people using the veil of anonymity that they're never going to find out about it or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, hey, yeah, if you're not, if it would be no different really, or very little difference than you reading these posts and just kind of like saying out loud to your friends, like, oh my God, look at this stupid person on the internet. Because it doesn't, because as you're pointing out, it doesn't tie back to the other person in any way or anything like that. So,
and these people are all using throwaway accounts anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I get it.
Here's the thing: the anonymity is being traded every which way on this. So I don't feel like that, but I do feel like, yeah, part of it is I am kind of casting judgment on this, but I'm casting judgment in a way that does absolutely zero impact to their life.
Yeah, and they opened it up by sharing the story in Reddit r/am I the asshole or whatever
they
that one is.
They asked the question, yeah. I'm giving them the answer.
Yeah.
Here's what's going to happen from here on out. Will I keep on making some of these tweets? Possibly. Will I turn it into a live stream at some point in the future? Most definitely.
I mean, I think, I don't know if you were heading in this direction, but we talked a little bit about like, do you want to turn this into like articles on that nerdy site or something like that? Who knows?
No, I think it'd be better as like just kind of like a quick, if I want to do a quick 30-minute stream.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, let's play Am I the Asshole? And like just go through that Twitter. Because I feel like I don't want to go to Reddit because I feel like there's too many Reddit detectives who are willing to like piece other things together and whatnot. Like I don't want to get involved with the Reddit side of things. I want just a cut and dry, I'm going to make a determination based solely off of what I'm not seeing from other people, but from what I'm seeing myself from their story and that alone. No comments.
Yeah, and the other element of that I think about is the fact that this is a story that they're putting out there to the world, and human nature is they're trying to tell the best possible version of that story, the version that puts them in the most positive light as it is. So it's always weird. Like I think of stories I've told friends where I'm like, I know I can think as I'm saying these things, I'm omitting key details to make me less of the asshole in this story so that you sympathetically like judge me less as a result of that. So I imagine those people are doing the exact same thing when they're telling these stories. The guy who left the earbuds in his pocket isn't putting all of the attention to, maybe he was drunk when he was listening to something and that's why he didn't think to check out his earbud to take the earbuds out of his pocket or whatever the case may be. Like he's probably leaving specific details out of the story that make him come across more as the asshole than his girlfriend who, yeah, as you said, like was trying to do a nice thing and didn't think to check the pockets of one pair of pants. Oops.
When she's doing all of his laundry.
Yeah, like, right. Come on. Right, but like so I mean, like I go through and I check my pants when I go do laundry, but I will miss, something in a pocket every now and then, and I'll pull it out and be like, "Oops, I guess I didn't check all of my pockets." So, whatever the case may be. But anyway, well, interesting, and yeah, if you keep doing it, like it's cool. It was just seeing like a flurry of them show up in my notifications all in one go. It's just like, okay, is this just a thing that I need to expect from Cameron now? Because again, I can temper things accordingly, and I can probably just mute whatever that account is if I really don't care or really don't want to see the posts. But interesting way to kind of identify and pass some time.
Yep, definitely.
Real quick on that, since you mentioned that like so much of it came from you've pretty much consumed all the content that was out there that you wanted to consume. Just kind of as a follow up to our Final Fantasy VII spoiler cast from a couple weeks ago. Without diving into spoilers or anything, I was just curious because one of the ones that I know that Brandon sought out after our recording and I've since watched as well was the Easy Allies spoiler mode about Final Fantasy VII. It's like 2.5 hours long, I think, and they dive into a lot of the same things we covered, but they dive into a lot of things that we completely like hadn't even like explored or thought about as well. So if you are looking for more Final Fantasy VII like ending theories and all that stuff.
I have that like on a saved list on YouTube.
Yeah.
That I need to get to. The problem is that if I'm going to commit 2.5 hours, I need to have food in front of me.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I need to be like it's when I have long form content like that, that's an investment of my time that I usually want to like set up a meal around.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that. I like for me it was
like when I watch a kind of funny podcast, I need to have something in front of me.
Yeah.
And that comes a lot from the old days when they were 2.5, 3 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched all of them all the way through when they debuted on every Monday. Nick was like, we break it up now because nobody would watch the entire thing. I did, Nick. I did.
Yeah. Oh,
He's never going to listen to this. I don't know why I'm making emphasis on that.
I mean, yeah, I pretty much always watched the full episodes. Because it was like, yeah, I wouldn't want to. I didn't like, getting in the middle of going into, episode or topic 2 of an episode or something like that, and then the world gets busy and I forget to go back to it and figure out, okay, well, which episode was this one a part of or whatever. So yeah, I would pretty much always listen to the full episodes too. Anyway, yeah, I really thought they did a great job kind of diving into a lot of stuff. There were a couple things I disagreed with, but by and large, that is the most comprehensive of the spoiler casts I'd seen, above and beyond our own. And then I just saw some tweets the other day that like apparently they've sat down and recorded a second spoiler mode for Final Fantasy VII with like some different people and stuff. So I'm looking forward to diving into that one as well. And I'm pretty sure I watched it or I had it playing while I was just going through like hard mode challenges, playing more Final Fantasy VII. So it was like I didn't need to be invested in like the story and dialogue that I was seeing on the game, so I was able to kind of multitask and just listen to what they were talking about. So yeah, highly recommend checking that out if you were a fan of the 2 episodes we devoted to Final Fantasy VII remake back then. So I have 2 more little things I want to tackle, and then we can dive into kind of your last thing, Cam. Because the 2 I wanted to talk about are a couple TV things that I hopped into in the last couple days, really. One is one of my favorite shows, Parks and Recreation, reunited to do like a basically a Zoom call special episode. In not in honor of, but they basically created a fundraising episode to try and raise money for COVID-19 response stuff. And it was just really nice seeing kind of that core cast get back together. Obviously they're all self-quarantining, so the framework of the show utilizes that fully. And they even have some fun with the fact that Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally are married in real life, so they could be in the same shots together as Ron Swanson and Tammy 2, his nefarious ex. They have some fun with that in the show. They have fun kind of explaining why some of the married couples aren't together in their sequences. And yeah, it was just nice seeing that cast come back together for this. Just check in, very like uplifting and positive kind of like one-off thing, and all in support of raising money for a good cause. So check that out if you're a fan of Parks and Recreation. Like I was fully prepared to go and like catch it on Hulu the day after it came out, but they put the whole episode up on YouTube, so it's available up there for anybody to check out. Yeah, on the NBC YouTube page. So yeah, check that out. Really cool. They have a nice little sing along. Everybody's doing the 5,000 Candles in the Wind song, which was an iconic element of the show. So yeah, check that out. And then the other one that I sat down and watched the first episode of today, and was blown away by just in how creative and fun it was, is on Netflix. There's a series, Middleditch and Schwartz, which is Thomas Middleditch from Silicon Valley and Ben Schwartz from Sonic the Hedgehog movie or DuckTales or Parks and Rec. And it's the 2 of them basically doing a long form improv show based off of a live audience. So I don't know when they recorded these episodes, but it was really cool. Kind of like the first episode is Parking Lot Wedding is what it's titled. And they took suggestions from this couple that was getting married, and they all met at like music festivals and stuff in the last few years. And they just have a ton of fun. So it's like 5 minutes of them talking back and forth and getting details from kind of the story that they've honed in on. And then they just go and do long form improv where they kind of trade characters in and out of scenes, and they'll like take turns playing the same character in a scene and all that kind of stuff. And it was just freaking hilarious, some of the things they do, and some of the ways they call back. They have some fun where like they clearly get confused on which characters' names are which, and so they introduce a character and then they're like halfway through a conversation and they reintroduce that character using a different name, and one of them's like, wait, no, you already have a name, I don't remember what it is though. and they kind of like feed off of the audience, feeding them the name and kind of helping them fill in the blanks and stuff, and it's just a really funny thing. And I love where they take it, and I love where they go with it, and they're just masters of the craft at long form improv. So highly recommend, and I can't wait to sit down. I didn't catch when I was watching it that it was like a multi-episode series of specials, so I look forward to sitting down and watching more of the specials as they come. Have you sat down and watched that at all?
No. I will say though, I have a hard time watching Thomas Middleditch now.
You have a what? Sorry,
I have a hard time watching Thomas Middleditch now.
Okay. Has he been canceled and I just didn't catch it?
No, he's not been canceled.
Okay. Just not a fan of like his style, his personality.
No, I actually think he's incredibly hilarious.
Oh, okay.
I really found it hilarious that like for somebody who is on a show all about like nerdy stuff, he's very much not a nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a comedy nerd because he does improv.
Yeah.
But that's very different from being like other stuff.
A tech nerd.
Like a tech nerd and stuff. What I will say that I'm not able to really look at him the same way is I read an article. It's like Thomas Middleditch and his wife's secret to a happy marriage, and I was like, all right, why not? I like seeing these fluff pieces about people I know.
Oh god, is he another DJ Khaled and just refuses to go down on his wife or whatever?
No. No, he is a swinger. They are swingers.
Ah, okay. So
the
opposite.
It was an article detailing how like he's like, yeah, like he's like, I am not sexually satisfied with one partner, and like all this stuff. That's like, it's very honest. He's being very honest about it, and like his wife's on board, and like that's their lifestyle, and that's what they want to pursue. But it's made it look like whenever he's like being like they ruined the last season of Silicon Valley for me.
Okay.
Because I'm watching this guy who's like he's like, and I'm watching him be like socially awkward and all this stuff. I'm like, you are a person who's not sexually satisfied by just like
you are a fraud, sir. I know that you're like, just getting it from multiple people. You are not really socially awkward.
This just the suspension of disbelief when I see him in anything, even interviews, is so wonky. Like it's so gone and removed. Like all I can think about is him like with his beautiful wife and just being like, I need more. And I'm like, man, dude, like this is like, it's not nothing wrong with it. Like I said, it's totally fine, but I can't look at him the same way anymore.
That's fair, I guess. Yeah.
It's like looking at like it's so far removed from like the nature of like things I know and like the heteronormative monogamous like lifestyle that like my friends and family all live, that it's totally just different. And it's like I'm like I can't like it's weird. I feel weird when I watch him now.
All right. I've only ever seen like the first season of Silicon Valley, so like the thing I end up seeing him the most in is like the Verizon commercials or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, back when you did that.
Yeah, but seeing him hop in on this, like I'd seen this show up in my Netflix queue for the last couple weeks, but I've just been watching like all of Community again and enjoying the hell out of that show. And I
started doing that with Parks and Rec recently, actually, like
nice.
Today.
Today
I started
after watching the reunion special. I'm like, I think maybe that's going to be the next show I just kind of sit and have playing while I'm playing through Persona or something like that. Have that be the show that's going on in the background, because that is a really good show. Really enjoy it. It's that or Chuck that I want to go back and revisit at this point. Because yes, those are a couple of my favorites in recent years, and I went through, I want to say like within the last year, and I rewatched all of Parks and Rec, so it's like I probably don't need to do that again so soon, but
Chuck walked so that The Office and like not The Office really, but like Parks and Rec could run, like shows that are just different.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Chuck and The Office were contemporaries of one another, and just doing very different things. Like Chuck, I would say, actually, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the nerdy type of stuff that's going on out there now. Like Chuck feels like maybe Chuck walked so Community could run, but even that, like Community never ran. Both of them were the perpetual like on the bubble kinds of shows, where they had a very niche but very hardcore audience. So like I would say like those walked so like something like Rick and Morty could run is probably the like a bigger analog right now, and it's and you risk the you know the audience turning into a whole bunch of jackasses online with something like that.
That was back. I remember that was like one of the earliest big like petitions people got signing online.
Yeah, or like Brooklyn Nine-Nine is really probably the best analog these days, since that one got canceled and then immediately like within a day got repicked up by Fox on that one.
NBC released. NBC canceled it, and then Fox picked. NBC.
Yeah, right.
Fox canceled it. NBC picked it up.
Yeah, because NBC was always the producer. NBC Universal was always the producers of it, but it aired on Fox. So it was a very similar to. I think the same thing had happened to Scrubs, pretty much.
But Scrubs was canceled by NBC.
Yeah.
And was picked up by ABC.
There you go.
That's a show I'm actually needing to start going back through again.
Yeah.
Problem is that it's not on Netflix anymore. And it's like a question like, do I do the Hulu thing? Because the answer is probably going to be no.
Yeah.
I just do not like Hulu.
I have those ones on DVD somewhere. I've gotten to that point where I'm just like, I have the Blu-ray or the DVDs, but am I going to be not lazy enough to actually go and like grab them, or am I just going to go find something that I don't have to get out and swap out discs for and do all that stuff? So, what a sad life I lead these days.
It's a sad life we all lead these days.
Man. I mean, like it was the same thing with Final Fantasy. Like I got the Final Fantasy VII like big collector's edition kind of thing, and I was like, I know myself, and I did this with Borderlands 2, where I was like, I'm gonna be way more happy to just like have the digital version installed on the system as well, and be able to like bounce between other games, and I don't want to have to swap out discs. So like I bought 2 versions of both of those games, or about like the collector's edition physical version and then the digital version, so that I could just have it installed on my system and enjoy all the tchotchke stuff aside from that. So yay for being super nerdy and wasting a whole bunch of disposable income. I joked one of my favorite little moments with my my mom and my aunt when I was showing them my island was I went into my room in the house, and I equipped or I put on the royal crown that I have that I purchased for like 1+ billion bells or whatever, and I was like, and here's I basically was showing them, and I can change my attire and do this, and here's my crown that I spent a million bells on, which is why I shouldn't have money in real life, and they both got a super kick out of that. So it's like,
nice.
Yeah, it's probably good that I'm not actually playing the stock market and trying to do stuff, because I would waste money if I actually had it on stupid stuff like that. It's
important to note the turnip market is like what everybody's doing is 100% insider trading.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like this is not like you can't be like, I'm good at the stock market on Animal Crossing, I'll go do it in real life. It's like you don't understand because you don't have that access.
Yeah, and you're also like not confined to trading within a week in the real world. But yeah, it was just kind of like it was an amusing little thing of like, yep, this is like the premise of buy low, sell high is true, absolutely. But yeah, the fact that you can put a call out there or just go online and find out who has like high turnip prices is not something you can do in the real stock market. So yeah. Anyway, so lastly, I'll throw it to you to talk about kind of your Final Fantasy since moving on from Final Fantasy VII. You've been playing Final Fantasy XIV a little bit here and there. How's that been going for you? You've been doing which expansion at this point?
Shadowbringers is the latest expansion. It came out last year. I got to the game late on it because I wasn't working when it came out. I played through for a while, got caught up by other things, had to start playing those. But what really ended up happening for me is, like, I ended up before PAX East, they had a sale on it on being on the PS4, and so I picked it up on there. I was like, cool, I can play this here or there, whatever, it's fine. Great thing about my PS4 version is it auto updates when the PS4 is off versus the client on my PC, which I have to update. And so I can hop right into Final Fantasy XIV online just right off my PS4. It works great. I've always used the controller anyway, so it's been a good time as far as that's concerned. I will say that so I just got really back into the story. I started heavily investing into that, and I'm coming up to the end of the initial expansion. There's still 3 patches worth of stuff because they just came out with a third patch. 3 patches worth of content to do afterwards, which is great because it's good stuff. Like Final Fantasy XIV tells probably one of, if not the best, overarching Final Fantasy stories of all time, which is able to do because it has an MMO format, which means you are scaled to level and go through a story at certain times. You have to get to this level to keep going in the story, etc. But its greatest appeal to me is the fact that I've had this character since level 1, and this character starts off being just a big old axe swinging marauder who ends up learning kind of the finer points to become a warrior, and then I become a dark knight, and it tells a story and a narrative for my character exclusively to me.
Yeah.
Other people can have a similar experience, but nobody's gonna have my exact experience that I had playing through this game.
Yeah. Because you're choosing which path you went. Like when I played, I went down the paladin route is where I was starting to head, and then I could have explored like another class after that, basically, right? But I loved exploring that, but then also exploring the other side stories of various other, like swapping into and being like, okay, I'm going to be a white mage for a little bit and see what that story feels like, and so yeah, I enjoy that. Sorry, back to you.
Oh yeah, no. So now in Shadowbringers, it's kind of coming to a head story-wise. It's really gotten exciting. But right now I'm trying just to kind of burn through the last dungeon before the end of the game, because I have the high mithril gear, which means nothing to you, Trevor, but to those out there know, it basically makes you a giant version of the Final Fantasy dwarves. It's like, don't get me wrong, I like it. I think it's fun and funny. Does not feel like it should be the end. Like it should be when I'm approaching like the end game fight. I should not be wearing this like giant, like, you know how Final Fantasy dwarves are designed, right? Like black mages but with beards. Yeah. So I have my helmet literally turns me into that. And I'm this like giant 6'7", 6'9" dwarf looking character, which makes no sense. And the coat is just so fluffy and ridiculous. And
you're like Braun Strowman.
Yeah, I'm like Braun Strowman, but if you dress Braun Strowman up like the fashion police. There you go.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, no, I really love the story. I love all the characters. It's really come to a head with doing really unique storytelling things that they haven't done in the past, which is, I think, it's interesting to note. I love Stormblood from an aesthetic perspective. Story-wise, I felt like it was a little one-note. And it struggles because it's coming after Heaven's Ward, which the Heaven's Ward expansion has one of the best stories in any Final Fantasy game of all time, standalone, even compared to, I think it's the best story-wise expansion that they've ever had, because it's done just so well. The scenario is just written so unbelievably well. It ties, especially if you pick up one of the Ishgardian-based classes that you unlock at 60, like the Dark Knight, like I did. The Dark Knight is interesting in Final Fantasy XIV Online because it's an order of knights who basically you could consider them, where paladins are meant to protect society at like the upper echelons of society. Dark Knights are meant to protect people from the upper echelons of society. Whether it's a monster or like a corrupt noble or politician, like Dark Knights are basically meant to be people who work outside the law to do these sorts of things. And in Heaven's Ward expansion, there's a whole heretical war going on. And so some people are being falsely accused of being heretics just so for, political gain of their enemies. And so like Dark Knights are meant to be kind of like an answer to that. Anyway, I digress. The point is that it's really good. I'm really liking Shadowbringers as an expansion as far as storytelling. It starts off pretty slow in my opinion, but it slowly has been ramping up to a point where it's at now, where it's like really awesome, amazing stuff has happened. You know what? The game came out a year ago. I can talk about it. Trevor, I slotted I basically convinced a guy who previously had been sitting eating Soylent Green in a palace, and under essentially just lethargy and debauchery and all sorts of every whim is answered and given to you. And I took him out of that, and I had him build me a giant rock monster to grab a floating island so that I could climb on top of the rock monster and get onto the floating island. And we're talking colossal scale floating island, even more colossal sized giant rock man.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good. Because they tell you, hey, we're going to build this giant Talos that's going to do this. And it's like, okay, sure. I wonder how it's going to look. Is it going to be super basic, just some arms? What's going on? No, it is the coolest thing. It is the coolest thing. Just this rock monster just grabbing this island for me so that I can run up and then try to kill basically an angelic host.
Cool.
It's very cool. It's very
pouring all these resources into a Titan that allows you to walk to a floating island just so you can kill something. Sounds
just
good.
So I can basically kill a Jesus type figure.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. I've talked about it on the show before. That I loved what I played out of Final Fantasy XIV. I just the MMO-ness of it holds me back when I get into, okay, now I can only progress through the story by doing these 4-person quests or whatever, and I innately feel like I'm the weak link in them, and I hate that feeling in those games.
And that's fair. I really hope that they bring the trust system that they introduced in Shadowbringers.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Where you play with other scions. I really hope they bring it down to the rest of the content of the game, because they are doing some with this latest stuff that they're going to be doing before the next expansion. They're basically making bringing upper tier content quality of life stuff down to the rest of the game.
Yeah, if they manage to do that and make it so that I can play the game as an MMO, but with AI assistance instead of having to try and rely on other allies, I would absolutely hop back into that, because I loved what I was playing with it. I remember to one of your points about just kind of the storyline that you are building for yourself. I will always remember one of my Paladin quest line things was such a direct homage to Barrett and Dine in Final Fantasy VII that I was like, oh, this is the Final Fantasy game that I've wanted them to be making for the last number of years. Yes. That it has so much reverence and love for the history of Final Fantasy storylines and character moments and all those kinds of things, that I was like, this is what I want. I want 99% of this game. It's just the 1% is such a deal breaker for me in allowing me to progress through the game that it was heartbreaking, because I had so much fun with the the handful of months I put into it back when we all hopped into it in, God, what was that, 2017, I think. So right, it was basically when Stormblood came out is when we all jumped into it, I think. So I'm glad you're getting back into it. I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's real cool, and I hope you continue enjoying the little other expansion patches and stuff that they're bringing out for you.
Well, you mentioned reference for older Final Fantasy stuff. It's important to note, in one of the Stormblood patch updates to it, they literally bring in the entire Eorzean version of they bring up Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy XII stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, because
they do it.
The game is set in Ivalice, isn't it?
So Ivalice is a continent in a part of the world in Eorzea, where this takes place.
Okay, yeah. Granted,
it's not necessarily the same Eorzea.
Right.
They get into that really deeply into the Shadowbringers. They get they get so deep into like their own like convoluted nonsense. It's great.
You love it, absolutely.
They never go
peak
full
Cameron.
Nomura on it. They never go full Nomura on it. They tease it. They're like, "Oh, are we being it? Nah, we're just teasing it. We're not really going to go full Nomura. You're okay.
They haven't had Sora start appearing yet.
They haven't broken the fan base yet. It's okay."
But yeah, that's that is one of those games that I just wish I didn't have that hang up, or I wish I had like it's the kind of thing I wish I had a steady squad of people that I knew I could play with, and or just even the commitment to myself, because I'm sure I could find a steady squad of people to play with and do all those things with. It's part that and part there's so much in the world to experience that me getting hung up on a single game and just like only playing that game, or continuing to go back and devote time to that game is just something that I'm like, but there's so many other things I want to play in the world, that I can't, it's a combination of that and having to rely on other people to play the game that I just can't get over. And it's my own hang up, but it's the hang up that keeps me from fully enjoying Final Fantasy XIV or 14. But yeah, I love what it's doing. I love what it has out there. And if it was a single player game, it would be the Final Fantasy game that I've been wanting for 20 years now or whatever. But
if it was a single player Final Fantasy game, like realistically speaking, it'd be the greatest single player Final Fantasy game of all time.
Yeah.
The fact that it's an MMO and it has to veer off into MMO like stuff is cool because it's an MMO, and that's great for people who love MMOs. Like, I enjoy MMOs enough that I'm fine with it. But if they were just to like give you this story that they're giving you in like a straight up Final Fantasy game like this, without a doubt, it'd be a contender for the best one of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Characters are so memorable. Like the music, oh my gosh, the musical score alone in Shadowbringers is so good.
Nice. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Keep me informed in kind of where you go from there. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for this week's
episode. To answer your question,
I
did kill their version of Jesus.
You did? Yeah, of course you did. I mean, like that was a given. As soon as you devoted that many resources to building a guy that got you to the floating island, you were going to just walk away from that. So yeah, that was just a given. As soon as you introduced that, I was like, oh, he did. I get that totally. But yeah, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me. Let's go around, kind of make our the plugs at our metaphorical table. You can follow Cameron at RevCabot, 2 B's, 2 T's. What do you want to shout out, Cam?
Look forward on the 5th for my review going up for the game that's under embargo that I've been playing.
Yeah, you've been playing that. We talked a little bit about it before you started playing. I look forward to seeing your review as you kind of start giving me some drafts here over the weekend. So keep an eye out for that on the 5th. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I would say check out my Final Fantasy VII review if you have not already. That's out there. Really happy with how that turned out. I put a lot of time and effort into it. I tweeted out when it went live that Final Fantasy always brings out like the most comprehensive reviews of me. I went back for reference to my Final Fantasy XV review from Trevor Trove as I was getting ready to publish this, and I'd written for that one it was 5,000 words, and my first pass at the Final Fantasy VII one was 4,000, which Jazz then kind of reviewed and edited and we brought it down. It's a little under 3,000 words. I have an unabridged version that I sent over to our friend Brandon Gann because I knew he would eat that up, and he was appreciative for that. But check out the review. I go into it's a spoiler-free review up through the score and then kind of the pros and cons section, which is basically the bulk or the entirety of a normal review that we do on the site. But then because some of the narrative spoiler choices that they make were really kind of impactful in why I give it the score I gave it, there is a spoiler filled section kind of at the end of the review for anybody that wants to read that and my thoughts on some of those elements. So check that out over at thatnerdysite.com. And then, yeah, check out Cam's review coming this week. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site. Check out thatnerdysite.com for all of the latest content that we're doing. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, maybe even consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Every patron gets early access to a monthly bonus episode of this very show. The one that that went live a couple days ago as a recording was Frank and myself talking about kind of how we're dealing with quarantine now, a month and a half in, as well as Frank's kind of budding interest in video editing, as he had put together so many of our PAX East videos, which is another thing you can check out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thatnerdysite. Check out all of the PAX East stuff that we put out there, which we finally were able to get out in the last couple weeks. So yeah, that's going to do it. Thank you again for listening. Thank you again, Cameron, for joining me this week. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.